Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree, and today I'm explaining my reasoning why the PS4 is my forever console. And so, let me explain what that means and why I came to this decision. So, I'm in my 40s. The general consensus among what do you call it? Gaming demographics, studies and gaming community and culture and sales and whatnot. The general consensus is that the vast majority of video gamers fall under the 18 to 35 age range. Those are the people driving the video game market. Yes, kids play video games. Yes, older adults play video games. But kids and older adults outside that market tend to have different buying habits than those in the demographic. 18 to 35-year-olds tend to be the ones buying the new consoles. They tend to be the ones buying new games, trying out new franchises, etc. Kids, for the most part, just play what's popular, but also what's kid friendly. A lot of times, just whatever the fuck their parents buy them. They don't have a lot of agency in what they're allowed to play. Sometimes they get choices, sometimes they don't. And older adults who age out of the demographic tend to fall under the category of lapsed gamers or retro gamers. Lapsed gamers are those who used to game, but they've got out of it. They've got a mortgage, they've got kids off getting ready to go off to college. They've got life, financial, and physical space and other things taking up their resources that kind of force them more or less out of the hobby. They may like pick a system that they hold on, they cling on to, and they buy games for it. Depending on what they grew up with, it might be a Commodore 64, it might be a Nintendo 64, it might be an Atari 2600 or whatever. I fall into that camp. I used to be a hardcore gamer, and I when I was younger, I used to buy all the game consoles as they came out, and I would keep up with the current events, new releases, rumors, new things like this. I would discuss video games with people, and I really paid attention to what was going on. But I don't anymore. And one of the reasons why I don't anymore is because I just don't have the time, and frankly, I really don't have the interest. Um, a lot of the games that are out there don't really appeal to me. And so over time, I've gone through a lot of phases in my life. And I went through the keeping up with what was current phase for a while. And then I went through the nostalgia trip, rebuying and collecting things from my childhood, either games I had in the past, or played in the past, or missed out on, but wanted to play or was aware of, etc. So I did go the retro collecting route for a while, a good long while, and I have at one point in time owned at least 75 to 80% of the game consoles released in North America um, at one point or another. Um, Even obscure consoles like the CDI and the 32X and other consoles you've probably never heard of. But I was living in the country. I had a house. I bought a house. I had a good job. And then COVID happened, and then the winter storm that shut down Texas happened, and through a chain of events, I lost my job and I lost my house and I had to move. And at that point, the first thing I did was sold off my video games to pay rent and buy groceries, you know, put gas in my car, so I could continue my job search while also looking for a buyer for my house, so that I could move and look forward to moving on in my life. Over the years, I have been pretty fickle. I was pretty loyal to Atari for a bit, and then Nintendo, and then Sega, and then PlayStation, and then I flip flop back and forth between Nintendo and PlayStation. never really getting interested that much in Xbox. I have owned an original Xbox at some point in the past, and I did own an Xbox 360 at some point in the past. But ultimately, neither one of those consoles were doing it for me. Now, I got my first PlayStation in 2000, September 7th, on my birthday, my 18th birthday. And I was fairly satisfied with it at the time, but I also had an N64, which, as I've talked about, I wasn't as satisfied with, but I was still really heavy into Nintendo at the time. So when the next generation came along, I migrated to the GameCube, and I was dismissive entirely of the Xbox, the PS2, the Dreamcast. I just had no interest in those three consoles. I dug my heels in and I declared myself a Nintendo gamer for the longest time. I went from GameCube and GBA to DS and Wii to Wii U to Switch, and then along the way, I did go back and pick up a PS2 and a PS3 and some other retro consoles, Sega Genesis, Saturn, etc. And when it came time to sell everything, I kept my PlayStation 2, my PlayStation 3, and my PlayStation 4. Now, the PS2 I kept because I had a couple of games on it that I wasn't ready to get rid of. And I knew I could still play PS1 games on it, which I also kept a couple PS1 games. I do have a PS3 with over 100 games on the digital library downloaded to the hard drive. Um, and so I do have a sizable, good chunk of games and a good variety. Some PS1 titles, some PS2 titles, some PS3 titles, some arcade titles, some PC ports, some original PlayStation network titles, PSN titles as they were known at the time, etc. So I have a good variety of PS3 games. But as time went on, I noticed as my PS3 was beginning to show its age, it isn't booting up as fast as it used to. The crossbar is kind of clunky. A lot of the games just don't really, it's like a lot of old games. I still play them from time to time, but I really found myself enjoying the PS4 more and more. And recently, this past year, 2023, I came to the decision that I was going to stick with what I have, which is my PS1, which does still work. I do have a working PS1. I have a working PS2, a PS3, and a PS4. But my focus is on collecting specifically for the PlayStation 4. Uh, as far as PS3 goes, I'm essentially done collecting for it because I believe they've shut down the store, so I can't buy any more digital games for it. And physical PS3 games, well, they have a problem. Some of them have the day one updates and the patches and the DLC, etc., which are no longer accessible, etc., which will become an issue on the PS4 down the road. But for now, I'm primarily focusing on buying games that are still playable on the PS4 because it is still playable. And I'll deal with that when the time comes. So this is kind of more or less, yeah, I am saying my PlayStation 4 is essentially my forever console, meaning there's tons of fucking games on the PlayStation 4 I don't own that I've never played. Plenty of games to keep me busy for the long haul, So I'm gonna keep buying games for the PS4, and once I get to the point where I'm satisfied with my PS4 collection, or I'm running out of games to buy that I have interest in, I'll probably fill in the gaps on my PS3, PS1, PS2, etc. So I'm basically saying I'm going to stick with the PlayStation consoles up to PlayStation 4. Is pretty much what I'm saying. So I won't be buying PS5, PS6, or so on and so forth. There might come a point where I pick up a PSP and or a Vita, mostly because a large chunk of the games I have on my PS3 digital um, downloads on my hard drive are compatible with the PSP and or PS Vita. So I may pick one of those up in the future, just so I can take some of those games on the go. Um, but pretty much where I stand is I won't be buying new current consoles, and I've pretty much adjusted to emulation to get my retro fix, which I'm sticking to the core consoles, Atari 2600, NES, SNES, N64, Master System, Genesis, Sega CD, 32X, and that's pretty much where I'm going to stay as far as retro emulation goes. And I do own a physical Nintendo DS, which I will continue to buy games for. But the focus for me is going forward is going to be on PS4 first, and then I did buy I shouldn't say buy. I got a external USB hard drive to plug into the PS4 to expand the storage capacity. And I do primarily buy physical games. I do own a handful of digital games. If I get them on a really good sale, or if, it's a holiday or a birthday or something and someone gives me, PlayStation points or whatever the fuck they're called, and I use those to buy games, I'll buy games. But for the most part, I stick to physical. Now, I'm not going to go all out and say, yeah, I'm going for a complete set, because that'll never happen. And I'm not going to say, oh yeah, I plan on having 2, 3, 400 games when it's all said and done. No, probably around 50 or 60, my core games. And then I'll, make those the games I play. And one of the reasons why I chose PS4 as what I'm calling my forever console is, frankly, Minecraft PS4 edition, which I actually have both. I have the disc, the PS4 edition, and I have the digital, which is Bedrock edition. So I do have the option of uninstalling Bedrock and putting the disc in and installing the console edition if I ever choose to do so. Which, I may or may not do depending on, how easy it is to transfer saves back and forth, if I get a thumb drive or something. But that's the game I play the most, Minecraft PS4. I have played Java and Bedrock on PC in the past. My current PC is not capable of handling video games because the graphics card burned out, so I had to go into the BIOS and disable it just to get it to boot into Windows, which is unfortunate because it is a GeForce RTX graphics card and a pretty beefy laptop, but unfortunately it is what it is, and I will not have the finances to upgrade my laptop, nor do I have the money to build or buy a gaming desktop for a good long while. So I have to make do with what I have, which will be the PS4. Now, fortunately, the PS4, much like the PS3 before it, and the PS2 before it, and the PS1 before it, does have a lot of games from my past, from my childhood, available to it. The Sonic or the Sega Genesis collection, the Street Fighter 2 collection, the Mega Man Legacy collection, so on and so forth. So I am able to get a good chunk of the retro games I want that I would buy at, these old consoles to play on the PS4 at a relatively fair price in comparison to the the retro versions. The Street Fighter collection I have on PS4 was $10 on eBay. That same collection, that same collection of games on PS2, the PS2 version of that collection, is considerably more money than $10. So I am looking to the PS4 for that as well. I have recently picked up a Dynasty Warriors game, The Sims 4, one of the farming simulator games, Skyrim, and about 5 or 6 other games in the past 3 or 4 months that I intend to put some time into in the future. And I feel comfortable with the PS4 being my base console, my primary console, and then just, dabbling in the previous PlayStation libraries as I find the time and money and etc. Um, I do not have PlayStation Plus, nor will I ever have PlayStation Plus. So I don't have the subscription service either, so I don't have the access to the new games. And there's going to come a time where they stop making new games for the PS4, which I do recognize. But considering most of the games that were new to the PS4 and games after that, which would be new to the PS5 and other consoles of that generation, really don't interest me that much. You know, um, so I'm not really looking forward to buying a new console or next gen console to play games I'm not interested in. I already have a PS4, so there's no reason to buy a PS5, even if it is backwards compatible. There's no reason to buy a PS5 because there's nothing on the PS5 I want, and the PS5 is not going to come down in price anytime soon. Not where I can afford it. It'd have to get down to about $150 before I could afford it, and it isn't going to do that. By the time it does that, the PS6 or even 7 will be out, and so who knows if I'll even be interested in video games by then. I'm barely interested now. Um, so I've resolved I will not buy any retro consoles. No physical Super NES or GameCube or, you know, Sega Genesis or anything like that. I'll get the games that I can through emulation, and I'll focus, like I said, collecting games will be on PS2 through 4, with a first emphasis on getting games for the PS4 first, and then backtracking through 3 and 2 as I fill up my PS4 catalog, or as I come across games that interest me if the price is right. Um, the PS2 generation, while it does have a lot of good games, as did the GameCube, which is one of my favorite game consoles of all time, a lot of those games are hitting the retro, vintage, rare market these days, which means they're going up in price. And that's not interesting to me. PS3 is probably going to start creeping up in price sooner rather than later. So I'm going to focus on PS4 for the time being because as of right now, it is one of the cheaper options for games. Um, I do have about 50 games currently between physical and digital for my PS4, uh, which is a sizable collection. It's a good solid library of games. And all but like 2 of them are games I'll probably play. Now, I say all but 2 of them. When I bought my console, I bought it on Black Friday, and it was a bundle that came with 5 games, 2 digital downloads, and then if you bought 1 game, you got 2 games free for buying the system. So I ended up getting 5 games total. The 2 digital downloads they came attached to the system. They were not pre-installed, but they were pre-purchased. So when you signed up, entered your PlayStation, your PlayStation account and connected it to the store, it gave you a voucher for those 2 games, and they were Far Cry 4 and Battlefield 4. And having not played the first 3 Far Cry games, I'm not even going to start playing Far Cry 4 until after I played the first 3, assuming I even enjoyed them in the first place. And likewise, Battlefield 4, same thing. I have no interest in playing Part 4 in a franchise if I haven't played the first 3 games in the franchise. So, that's where I am on that. Um, you know, so of all the games I have in my collection, those are the only two I would say I have no interest in. But to the best of my knowledge, I've never asked PlayStation if I could do this. I don't believe I can trade those two titles for games I actually would play, because I don't think they let you do that. Uh, Although, to be fair, I've never asked. Um, and at this point, I've had my PlayStation 4 since 2014. I'm pretty sure they're going to say, yeah, you've had plenty of time to trade in those games if you wanted to. I think they're going to say no. So there's no point in even asking, because why bother? You know what I mean? Um, so let's talk about the games I am interested in, because, I have talked about Nintendo and Sega in the past. Obviously, I like Sonic the Hedgehog, which does have some representation on the PS4. I also like Mario and Zelda and Metroid and Donkey Kong, which do not exist on the PS4. So obviously, I would either have to find counterparts or do without. Um, so, like I said, I really like Minecraft. That's my primary game. I also really like Diablo 3. I put a lot of hours into Diablo 3. So I imagine at some point I'll pick up Diablo 4. Um, I do have Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance as well as Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 on the PS4 through the digital downloads. So there is a high probability at some point I may try to pick up or look into picking up Diablo. Is it, or not Diablo? Excuse me. Baldur's Gate 3, I believe it is. I may end up picking that up at some point. I do have Skyrim already, and I do have a handful of other um, role playing games in that vein, even Final Fantasy 15 as well. So I do, and I have a couple Kingdom Hearts games as well. So I do plan on digging into that franchise a little bit. I have the aforementioned Street Fighter collection, and I used to have Street Fighter 5, but I don't remember if I sold that when I sold my games or if I just misplaced it. So I might still have a copy of it somewhere. I might not. Yeah, when I bring my totes in from the car and I dig through them, if I don't find it, I'll probably pick it up at some point. Um, I do have Mortal Kombat X. I'll probably pick up 11 at some point. I do have GTA 5. I don't see any reason to go further than that because I'm not really a fan of GTA. I bought GTA 5 more or less on a whim. I have a Call of Duty game. I don't imagine I'll be buying any further games in that franchise, most likely. I do plan on getting Cyberpunk at some point. Um, God, what's it called? Um, I used to have Watch Dogs, but I don't have that one currently. But I can't remember what it's called. What's it called? Not Destiny. The one that's like on PlayStation that's like Breath of the Wild. I can't remember what the fuck it's called. I do have that game. So let me look at my library and see what it's called. I have No Man's Sky. That's one that I will definitely play. Where did it go? Horizon Zero Dawn. I do have Horizon Zero Dawn. Yes, I do have that. That's the game I was thinking of. And I have quite a few others. So I imagine I will probably play games of that sort. Um, just looking at my PlayStation app here. Trying to see if it'll show me all the games that I have. I guess it doesn't really show me. I thought maybe it did. I mean, it shows me all the ones I have, the digital ones I have, but it doesn't show me all my discs, obviously. Maybe it's under settings. Is it under purchases or let me see. Anyways, I have those games, so I will definitely be playing some of them. Like I said, I have the Dynasty Warriors game. I'll probably be getting additional Dynasty Warriors games, God of War, games like that. That's what I'm looking for right now. I'm not a big fan of first-person shooters. I'm not a big fan of the story-based games, so I probably won't be getting The Last of Us or any of those kind of games. Most likely, but we'll see. As time goes on, my PlayStation collection will grow, and I will be fine with that. Stay cool.